We're talking today with Mr. Woodrow Tromp of Jenison, Michigan. The interviewer is James Smither of Grand Valley State University. Mr. Tromp, can you begin by telling us a little bit about your personal background? Where were you born and where did you grow up?
Well, I was born in Grand Rapids and I've lived here all my life. I joined the National Guard when I was a kid, and my brother joined a little later, and we would have fun in the summertime. We'd go to Camp Grayling, go to camp, and we had a lot of training along with it. We'd go to the rifle range, and we'd go on hikes, and believe me, being in the infantry, we did do a lot of hiking.
Mm-hmm. Now, you said you joined when you were a kid. About how old were you when you signed up?
Well, I was about 17.
Mm-hmm. And how old were you supposed to be?
18.
Okay. So how did you manage to get in?
Well, I gave them the incorrect year that I was born.
Yeah, I don't think they'll come after you now. So.
I gave them a year later, or a year earlier than I was actually born.
Mm-hmm.
But I got through that all right. And we.
Now, what about your brother? Did he get through it all right?
Yes. Well, he got through until the time was that we were going to go south to camp in Louisiana,
Mm-hmm.
and they asked all the men if they wanted to stay in or if they wanted to get out. If they wanted to get out, good. And he got out because he was younger than I was yet.
Mm-hmm.
So he got out and finished his high school, and he went on to college. And
Well, now, did he want to get out, or did someone make him get out? 'Cause
no,
was
he
still
wanted it. That was
Okay.
his choice.
Okay.
His choice. He got out, and so
Okay. Now let's back up a little bit. What did your family do while you were growing up? What did your father do for a living, for instance?
well, my father at the time was working for a wholesale grocer
Mm-hmm.
in Grand Rapids, Lee and Katie, and mother stayed home,
Mm-hmm.
managed the kids. Now I had 5 sisters, one sister older, and the rest of my siblings were all younger.
Mm-hmm.
I had 5 sisters and 1 brother, so we had a large family.
Big family.
And going through the Depression, well, one thing I might say with the Guards, we got $1 a night once a month,
Mm-hmm.
and we looked forward to that.
Mm-hmm.
We went to camp, we got $2 a day,
Mm-hmm.
and
Now, you joined the Guard at about, maybe 35 or so, a little before the war started and before all that stuff was going on. But so if you're born in 1917, you graduate from
Central High School.
or you weren't born right there, or yeah, born. So you graduate from high school about 1935, 36, in there somewhere.
37.
37, okay. So you got a little bit of time there before the war starts and the Guard gets federalized and so forth. What kind of work did you do after you got out of high school?
Well, I was working in a grocery store,
Mm-hmm.
and for a time, and then after that I was working for General Motors. Now when we were called up for federal service,
Mm-hmm.
then I was working for General Motors here in Grand Rapids
Mhm.
at the stamping plant.
Mm-hmm.
And they told us we were going to be mobilized October 15, 1940.
Mm-hmm.
And about 2 weeks before that, they asked me if I wanted to go on production
Mm-hmm.
and piece work.
Right.
And I said, sure, I'd be glad. And boy, did I get sick of it in just 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So when I come back from the service, I never returned to General Motors and everybody said, oh, you're crazy to give up all that seniority because
Mm-hmm.
it kept on while I was in the service.
Mm-hmm.
So when I come back, later on I joined Uncle Sam in the mail service.
Mm-hmm.
So I still got credit for my Army time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you had just enough experience in the factory to realize that the Army wouldn't be so bad after all.
Right.
At least in 1940. Okay. Now, the Guard, up until the Guard gets federalized in October of 1940, your duty was sort of the kind of the weekend warrior thing, and a couple of weeks in the summer you'd go to Camp Grayling and do training and so forth. Now, Then, once the Guard gets federalized, where did they send you?
Well, we went to Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
The first camp we went to was Camp Beauregard.
Right. And what was Camp Beauregard like?
Oh, that wasn't a bad camp until we realized that there was improvement. So all the time they were preparing another camp, Livingston, which was much nicer. And
What made Livingston better than Beauregard?
well, the layout and the buildings and everything was brand new, and we really enjoyed that a lot better.
And what kind of countryside was it around there?
Well, Louisiana is an interesting state. It has a lot of canals, and we would go out on the field, and they had all kinds of bugs. They had scorpions and tarantulas and snakes and just name it. Now our CO, he was a taxidermist, and remember one time I caught a snake and I put him in my gas mask, which was illegal. But I told him when we got back to the company, I says, Captain, I got something to show you. And he said, where is my gas mask? He says, you know better than that, Sergeant. I said, yeah, I know it. You know, what is it? He reached in there without looking. Always said that was a perfectly harmless snake. But he was a bluff. He was wide in his whole head. He was like a spitting cobra. And he was just all bluff. But they also had coral snakes, which were very, they says, if they bit you, you had about 30 minutes. So they had rattlesnakes and cottonmouth snakes down in the swamps. But anyway, it was quite a place to have our maneuvers.
Okay. Now, how did the guys in your company hold up under these maneuvers? I mean, were they able to handle the weather and the rest of it there?
Yes, they did it pretty well. I know they said, now be very careful. We had blanks, and one of the fellows saw supposed enemy, and he shot at him, and he hit a button on his shirt, and that kind of disintegrated, and it bled quite a bit. And the guy was really almost in shock. He thought he had been shot.
Yeah.
But it turned out all right.
Okay. Now, what kind of training were you doing down there in Louisiana at Beauregard and Livingston? Were you getting more marching? Were you getting more combat training, or what was it?
Well, we had a lot of marching. We had a lot of close order drill. And I know the guys would hate that. So the best way to get even with them, say, well, all right, you get out there and you give them a little workout. And then, well, I don't know how to do it. I don't know where to start. Well, then they'd kind of simmer down because not everybody could do it.
Now, were you a sergeant at this point, or?
Yes, I was a sergeant at that time.
Okay. So were you in charge of drilling some of the soldiers, or were you just doing the rest of what they were doing?
Well, I went in and I had charge of the mortar section. And then later on I became platoon sergeant. That was the 60 millimeter mortar and also the light machine guns, 30 caliber. So we were the firepower of our unit, really.
Okay. Now, if you were on the march someplace, what did you have to carry?
Well, I carried a carbine, and then later on I got an M1. But actually, when we were in combat, I always would get an M1. You always pick up one. And but when we were at a march, walk a long distance, then I carried a carbine, which was much lighter.
Well, but as sergeant, you didn't have to carry one of the machine guns or a mortar tube or a base plate or something like that.
Yes and no. We were on a forced march, and our CO, Captain Shirley, said, "Now, do you need help with your automatic weapons. Do you need help carrying them ammunition? I says, yes. He says, would 10 men help? I said, sure it would. So they carried some of the machine gun and also the mortars. And next day he says, was 10 enough? I said, well, it helped. He said, I'll give you 20. And the same thing the third day. Third day gives third. And you know, some of the officers were very, very willing to do their share, and they would do it. And our SEAL, Captain Shirley, right at the front of the column sometimes, and he was carrying it. Oh boy, that did your morale good. But we had one that he wouldn't lift a finger for anybody. And of course, he got that name too.
All right. What else do you remember about life in camp down in Louisiana?
Well, that was a lot of training. Like in the mortar section, we had a lot of range estimation. And sometimes, just out of the blue, would say, that stake, action. And they would put a stake in the ground, and they would have to put another one and get their base plate lined up. And they would figure so many degrees, and we tell them the distance of the target. But they just had a lot of practice doing that.
Now, were they doing this with live ammunition at this point?
No, no live ammunition.
So how would you then be able to judge your accuracy? If you don't have live ammunition, how do you know where you're hitting?
You don't. Now with the mortars, the way we practice, you would fire a round, and if it was over it, then you would give them a shorter distance.
How would you know it was over? Was it the dummy? Was there a dummy or a weight or something that you fired out of the mortar tube?
No, that was all by estimate.
Okay, well, how could you estimate? Because the mortar is shooting up, and if there's nothing that's landing over there anywhere.
Okay. Well, we had gauges to turn it, and on our mortar shell too, so many fins. Someone give it a lot more, as you could shoot just a short distance or a long distance. And so you can do quite a bit of adjusting.
I'm just still trying to figure out how you could adjust if you couldn't see where the shot landed. You could just look at how it came out of the tube or at what angle or...
Now, when you do this, you have an observer. And of course he just imagines that, like he would say the target is 1,000 yards, and you'd shoot it, and he'd say, oh, we're over. So now I want you to shoot.
So it was more practicing to react and respond to what he said that they were doing? Okay, now I get it. All right. Now, did you get much of a chance while you were in Louisiana to go into any of the towns or see any of the local people or anything like that?
Yes, we went to one town of Alexandria, and we had a lot of fun there. Now, I didn't drink, so I didn't go around boozing, but I went to a Baptist church there, and the people there were so friendly, and I just got to make a lot of friends. And sometimes they'd take you out to dinner, invite you to their home, and that's always different than the Army food. So that was kind of fun.
Okay. Did you have guys who were getting in trouble off base and drinking too much and that kind of thing?
Oh yeah, I always had some that overdo it, and they need a tap on the shoulder, and I said, no. And of course, you always got ways of disciplining them. Now, I had one fella, he didn't want to wear his leggings, so I called him out, and I said, you wear leggings or else. Next day he didn't have them on. I said, how come? Well, he went over my head to some other sergeants who had more stripes than I did. He said I didn't have to. I said, okay. I says, I can't make you wear them, but I can make you wish you did. So when the following Sunday came along, I saw that he got on KP. Well, he asked for a pass. I said, no, you're on KP. And was he mad? So I said to him, I said, well, I can't make you, but I can make you wish. Oh, there's ways to get around it.
Okay. Now, do you remember how you heard about the attack on Pearl Harbor?
Yes, it was on a Sunday afternoon. I know when I usually, or most of us would write letters Sunday afternoon, and we had our radios on, and boy, was that blaring. And everybody got excited, and they ran out on the company street, and they said, this is it, sharpen your bayonets. And then we knew that we were all going to be in it sooner or later. So I happened to get on a couple of training cadres, and so that was interesting. You get some new fellas in that had never been in the Army, and then
yeah, so you were, let's see, if they federalized you in October of 1940, so you'd been already down in Louisiana for a little over a year at that point. Yeah, and during that time, were they regularly adding new recruits to fill out the ranks of the regiment and get you up to strength, or did they come in a couple batches, or how did that work?
Usually they would come in a batch, at least more than one at a time, yeah. That was really a fun experience, because we got a lot of recruits from the South, from Louisiana. And we fought the Civil War over many a time between the Southerners and the Yanks. And I remember one little Southern boy, he says, I never thought that Yank was one word. He says, my mother always thought it was damn Yank.
Yep.
So.
Okay, so now did the training routine and the way the unit functioned, did that change after Pearl Harbor? Were you doing things differently, or just doing the same things and waiting for something to happen?
Right after Pearl Harbor, they sent us all over. Some would go to a waterworks to guard that. Some would go to guard a bridge and different important places like that. They thought everything was going to be sabotage right away. So they gave us a training in guarding all those points.
And then how long did they have you actually do that kind of guarding?
Oh, I don't know, several weeks. And then, of course, after that, they got us ready to move up to Fort Devens, Massachusetts.
Okay. Now, and what was Fort Devens like?
Well, of course, that was different. That was barracks, an inside room. And they wanted to know that we all had woolens. We said, uh-oh, we're going to Europe.
Yep.
And I said to the guys, I says, now, I'm going to start a rumor. I says, in about 3 weeks' time, they're going to put us on a troop train and send us to California and send it to some South Sea island. And that's exactly what happened. And that was something else.
Now, what did they tell you about that when they actually told you, when they actually loaded you up on the trains to take you away? Did they tell you where you were going, or?
No, they don't tell you anything. Everything's a big mystery. We can't tell you this, can't tell you that. It's military secret.
Okay. So what do you remember about that train ride across the country?
Well, I know we were in a sleeper car, but they wouldn't let the beds down. And somebody said, oh, you can't tell me, I can't do that. Somebody had the bright idea, they got a coat hanger and they got it down. So they went up and down and let them all down. And the porter didn't like it, but he got paid well when at the end of the trip everybody put in some dough, and he must have had a bushel of money.
Okay, I'm just going to pause it here. All right. And just let her finish the phone call. All right, so you managed to convert your sleeper car into a sleeper car. Now, did you guys get caught?
Well,
Oh, you said the Pullman porter cared. Did anybody else care?
well, no one cared. And we got down there, and they tipped the guy well, and he was happy, and we were happy. So,
All right. And then where did they take you? What city did you go to?
they took us to
San Francisco or?
California. Now, let me see. I should know that. Must have been San Francisco. And we went to the Cow Palace, and we bunked up there, put our bunk out, or that was our place to live for about 2 or 3 weeks. And from there, we'd go around visiting, visit Chinatown, and visit the cable car and things like that. Just see the big bridge there, that was very interesting.
Right.
Golden Gate.
All right. And then they load you up on a ship.
Well, and after that, they put us on a ship, and we were very fortunate. We got on a luxury liner, the Lure Line, and we had a stateroom. I don't know, there was 6 or 8 of us in there, and we started out, and the guys all running off to the John. They were heaving, and I said, "We a bunch of pussycats." So I was playing chess with another guy, and pretty soon the chess were going round and round, and both of us ran off. And they said, "Well, you're not a good sailor if you don't get seasick." Well, going out of the harbor there, why, it's very rough, and they says, usually everybody gets it, and it did in our outfit too. But we had it very nice. We were on a luxury liner. Matter of fact, we had the general on our ship, and boy, he was a very good soldier.
Was that General Harding, the division commander?
Yes, and it was at night we would have a sing-along, and I can remember he joined it, and he was very, very much in favor. And so.
Now, did you have any scares with submarines or things like that on the way over?
Well, on one occasion, well, first of all, we went to Honolulu. We didn't get off the ship, but we lay there for a few days waiting for our pickup. And I thought we were going to have a whole fleet picking us up. I heard later on, I don't know, they had a cruiser or what, they had something, somebody around to take care of us. And so.
And then from Hawaii, where did they send you?
Then we went to Australia, and they wouldn't tell us where we were going. And, finally, they said, "Well, see, I can't even think the name of the port we landed in Australia."
You went up in Adelaide. Adelaide.
Is it Morrisby?
Adelaide.
That's New Guinea.
Adelaide.
So Adelaide,
yeah.
Australia.
That's it.
Right.
All they said, it begins with A. Well, I didn't know there was such a town as Adelaide.
Yeah. Well, had you ever even been on a ship or at sea before?
No, I never have.
How about a boat on Lake Michigan? Or maybe.
Yeah, well, my son has a boat, and yeah, he goes up and down.
Yeah. But in those days, I mean anything bigger than
Well,
the lake at Kent
we
really.
were on a cruise to Alaska. That was very interesting.
But that was still after.
Well, after the war.
So it was a.
Well, now this luxury liner was the best ship we were ever on in the service. From then on was on down to lesser.
Right. Okay. Now you get to Adelaide. Where do they put you, or what kind of base did you go to?
Well, something interesting there. They had some trenches there, and some of the Aussies had actually manned these trenches. They expected an invasion because the Japs had taken so many other islands, there wasn't any other place left where we could make a landing. And then they built a little place for us. I remember the outhouse they had was made of galvanized steel or tin, and boy, if you don't think that's cold. And we always made fun of that. It was a hit and run job because that was cold. And we slept in pup tents for a while, And I know they told us we weren't allowed to go to town, but if it rained there, why, it's no fun being in Bucktown when it rains, so we'd sneak to town anyway. And that is if you could avoid the MPs.
Okay. How did the Australian population treat you?
Oh, very good. They were interested in us, we were interested in them. I know some gal says to me, "What's your name?" I said, "Woody Trump." And she just laughed, and I said, "What's so funny about that?" And then she started singing some little ditty about Admiral Trump. And that's one of my great-great-great-grandfathers way back in the 1700s. Yeah.
17th century Dutch Navy, best admiral.
Yeah, and well, he put a flag up on his mast, meaning he swept out the English Channel. And then I said to her, I said, "What do you know about that?" I said, "That's Dutch history." Don't forget it's English history too. But yeah, good laugh over that. But anyway, in general, they were very, very kind and hospitable to us.
Yeah. Did you get much training in Adelaide, or were you just kind of sitting around waiting for something to happen?
Oh no, we're always they always find things for you to do in our training. Always a lot of nothing else, close order drill, and that's so the men get used to following instructions and following orders.
And of course, by this time, we've now made it, well into 1942. So you've been doing that for a long time.
Oh, yeah, you do it in your sleep.
All right. Now, were they at that point teaching you much of anything about the Japanese or how they fight or anything like that?
Oh yes, we had a Japanese general, and says, "Well," he says, "these fellas are little, but he says they're very slick, and be careful."
A Japanese general or
No.
or an Australian
An
general?
Australian general. He was a 3-star general. I think that's about as high as their ranking general had. And he was an old duffer, and he says, "You men don't want to live forever." And he says, "When you go in there and show them what you can do." Pardon me. So, excuse me, got allergy.
Okay.
But anyway, we never had to fight with the Aussies, but we saw them when we first went in.
Okay. Well, that's getting a little bit ahead of the story here. So
Yeah.
you're in Adelaide, and then where did they move you after that?
From Adelaide, they moved us up to Brisbane. And it was interesting because they have narrow gauge tracks, and each state has a different gauge, which is not conducive to moving troops or equipment during a war, because you come to another state and your train would have to pull alongside, and then you would just have to transfer everything over. So that takes time. Well, we went up to Brisbane, we went up to, took us out there in the boonies, and I says, "Okay, turn around, and just go forward." Well, it was all brush and trees. We had to go in there and clean it all out, set up our tents there. And like the Army, after you get it done quite well, then they'd move you down a little ways, and somebody else would outrank you. And
Now, did you encounter any interesting wildlife there? I mean, did they have snakes and scorpions and bugs, or was it better than Louisiana?
yes, we had they had snakes and a lot of birds, and loud birds. One we called the laughing jackass, and it would sound just like a man laughing. Sometimes they'd wake you up in the morning. They also had big lizards, 8-10 feet long, and they said, well, if they would bite you, you wouldn't die necessarily, but you'd be awfully sick for a long time. And so we always respected them.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and there were snakes, but we never got bothered with them.
Okay. Now, at this point, were they giving you any more training that was better preparation for actually fighting the Japanese? Were they telling you anything about how the Japanese fought?
Well, you hear different theories. Some say the Japanese will follow in a column. If you shoot one, you got a good chance of shooting two.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was the silliest rumor,
Mm-hmm.
because that was not true. They were skillful,
Mm-hmm.
and they outsmarted us in their jungle training.
Mm-hmm.
We'd never been trained for that.
Right.
And boy, they could set snipers, maybe 2 or 3 in a unit,
Mm-hmm.
and they wouldn't move. And they were just guarding a certain trail,
Mm-hmm.
and whoever had the best beat on them would get them. And I'm telling you, snipers could hold up a whole company,
Mhm.
even a battalion,
Mhm.
because they could get take off enough of the men so they wouldn't go forward.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay, and so they were not really preparing you for much of that then.
no, we weren't prepared at all for that.
All right. Now, where did you go then from Brisbane? Where did they send you into action?
Well, Brisbane, we went on up north. I'm not sure if it was Rockhampton or one of the
Mm-hmm.
cities up there. There they put us on a boat, on a Liberty ship or a Victory ship it was,
Mm-hmm.
and they took us to Port Moresby,
All right.
and we had a terrible storm, and the waves were going away with the top of the ship,
Mm-hmm.
and we had a ship that was, or a smaller boat, life, and it was big enough to hold 6 Aussies, and they slept in there, and that thing was swept off. So right away they turned on the spotlights, and
Mm-hmm.
they rescued the ship and the men, and I guess they sunk the ship.
Mm-hmm.
But they had their lights and everything on doing it, and then after so, okay, complete darkness again. Boy, any
Mhm.
man light a match to smoke at night was
Mhm.
thrown in the brig. They were very, very strict on that.
Mhm.
No lights at all at night. But I can remember in the Sunday service, I said to the chaplain, there were so many guys out. He says, "What do you think?" I said, "I think the storm had something to do with it." He said, "You
Mhm.
know it." The guys got scared because they thought that they were going
That might be it right
that
there.
would be it. But anyway, after the storm, then it's over, we get back to Port Moresby, and of all things, went to the docks there, the lights were all lighted up.
Mm-hmm.
Here we've been so careful about, can't even light a lighter or a
Mhm.
match, and here they're all lighted up. And they put us on trucks, and they had these little lights that they can use
Mhm.
at night.
Mm-hmm.
And they drove us to a place where we were going to encamp there in
Mhm.
Port Moresby. They took us past, at that time it was called 17-mile drone. And boy, talk about a graveyard for airplanes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so many of our planes they would make it back, just bulldoze them off to one side.
Mm-hmm.
And because we had the disadvantage, the Japs had the air power,
Mm-hmm.
the sea power, they had it all over us.
Mm-hmm.
And they could do pretty much what they wanted. And
So there were aircraft based there, but a lot of them would take battle damage and then land, and then they couldn't use them anymore, so they just put them aside and
yeah, just
bring
put
in
them
new ones.
aside. And,
Now, how long did they base you at Port Moresby? About how long do you think you were there?
well, I don't remember, but it wasn't very long.
Mm-hmm. Were there air attacks or other things like that while you were there?
Yes, we had a lot of aircraft warning.
Mm-hmm.
And this Tokyo Road used to announce
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna send so many planes at such and such an hour, and we'll be there. And sure enough. But our planes too, they would usually take off before they got there because
Right.
they don't want to get caught on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, they didn't have enough at the time to tangle with them.
Right. Well, did some of the air raids come at night?
Oh, the Japs love to fight at night,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's on the ground or in the air. And so many times at night you hear that high-pitched whine of their engine.
Mm-hmm.
And especially on a moonlight night. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
that was scary because, yeah, you never know when they're going to dip down and strafe or drop a bomb or what.
Mm-hmm.
So you couldn't be too careful.
Right. Now, the first sort of engagement your division, your regiment gets into will be at Boona on the other side of the Owen Stanley Mountains. Now, how did they get your company over into that battle?
Well, we were fortunate. We flew over in 1 hour,
Mm-hmm.
and one battalion took, I think, 30 days.
Yeah, or 40.
All right, all right.
Mm-hmm.
But then after we got there, then they put us on a forced march,
Mm-hmm.
and that was rough. I don't know, it was 12 days or so.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember our mess sergeant gave each one of us one of our stockings a sack full of uncooked rice,
Mm-hmm.
and we had a can of corned beef and half a dozen cans of rations. And he says, you better use that because don't throw it away.
Mm-hmm.
And it was difficult to make a fire because it rains all the time there in the jungle. Matter of fact, it was so thick at times you couldn't tell if the sun was shining or not until you come to a little clearing and you say, oh yeah, the sun is shining.
All right. Now, what was the trail like that you were on? I mean, how easy or hard was it to get your equipment and stuff along it?
Well, everything we had was on our back.
Mm-hmm.
Some fellows would throw even their steel helmet away, which was a real no-no,
Mm-hmm.
because you needed that. Yeah, and if you didn't do it for protection of your head, you'd always carry water in it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but 3 times we were supposed to receive rations from the air, and they weren't there.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got to the point where we had to use our emergency ration, which was a candy bar.
Mm-hmm.
I remember we'd take 1 square in the morning and 1 in the late afternoon. That's what we had lived on, and we were marching, so
Mm-hmm.
we got pretty well worn out.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you have a smaller mountain range to cross too, or were you mostly going through flat country?
Well, when we got to the end, there was all kinds of rations, because there they dropped them from the air, and matter of fact, they said to some of the fellas who were on the detail, they said, don't eat too much. You know, some it's so starved that they'd eat too much and they'd get very sick, sick as a dog.
Okay. Now, when you got up there, what kind of situation was it around Boone? I mean, what was your unit walking into by the time you got there? What was going on?
Well, I can remember when we went in, it was on a Sunday morning, and the Aussies were coming the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
We were going in and they were going out of the road, and boy, that wasn't very good for our morale. They had so many litter cases,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the companies had anyway from a half a dozen or more men left out of a whole company,
Mm-hmm.
and they really got shot up. Now, they had a different philosophy than we did.
Mm-hmm.
They said, if you have to take a bunker, for example, and he says, if it takes 25 men, he says, what's the difference if you go one at a time or if you just all rush it?
Mm-hmm.
And they were in favor of rushing it.
Mm-hmm.
He said, no, we're not built that way. We would dig a trench up there, and you take 2 or 3 days, then go up there with a flamethrower or grenades or something, but not to waste 25 lives.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, they were real fighters, and but we didn't always agree with her.
Right. Now, at this point, were men in your company getting sick yet? I mean, we were having problems with malaria or other things.
Well, they were starting to get sick,
Mm-hmm.
but we still had, I can't even think what we had before, quinine.
Mm-hmm.
We take quinine every day. And then when we ran out of that, that's when we all got malaria.
Okay.
And then they came in, well, you gotta take 2 a day,
Mhm.
1 in the morning and 1 at night, and everything, rumor around is it gets sterile if you use 2 of them, but then it was a little too late.
Mm-hmm.
Then the bug got the best of us.
All right. What do you remember about the first time, your first time in action against the Japanese? We said you were going in, the Australians are coming out. What did your unit do from that point?
Well, we were given the mission to set up a roadblock,
Mm-hmm.
but we didn't know just where.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't know how to get there, no maps,
Mm-hmm.
and we got lost in the swamp for several days.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, that was miserable, and nothing you could do. Your feet rotted, your shoes rotted, but we finally got out of the swamp and we made contact with them, and they had so much firepower, they were just
Mm-hmm.
knocking the daylights out of us. And we had some battalion commanders said, well, all we gotta do is up and at them, and our CO said, no, that's not good. He says, we should try to outflank them or somebody. He said, no, you're going through this if you don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
We had sent for tanks or artillery,
Mm-hmm.
but MacArthur was not in favor of that. He would not honor that request.
Or at least there wasn't any available there yet. That stuff came in later as they were able to bring it up, but at the time you first started,
but
wasn't there yet.
Much later,
Mm-hmm.
really too late.
Yeah, the whole division had about 2 artillery pieces when you started. So.
But anyway, our battalion commander got hit, $1 million hit. He got hit in the leg. They carried him off in a litter, and our Captain Shirley says, he says, now I'm in charge.
Mm-hmm.
Called all the officers, none comes. He says, this is what we're going to do. He says, we're going to pull back. We're going to go around, down the road, maybe in half, 3/4 of a mile, there's the woods.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, we're going to go right on the edge of the woods.
Mm-hmm.
We'll send the scouts out ahead of us, and we'll see if we can't get around this whole shooting gang.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And we lost a few. We had some native scouts,
Mm-hmm.
and they were good. They could smell Japs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they said. And sure enough, they'd prowl around and they'd get them out someplace. But anyway, so then we went around the edge of the woods.
Mm-hmm.
And I know something that I ran into that I was not prepared for. There was another little trail going on, and our CO said to me, he says, send a patrol down there and see if that trail is secure for us. Well, all I had around me was mortar men,
Mm-hmm.
and I never was prepared to send I said to one of the mortar sergeants, I says, take your squad and go on patrol. And what am I supposed to do? My mortar. I said, just follow me with a little way. I said, see that tree? I said, set your mortar and all your equipment down there and follow me. And when the trail and I went just a little way, and boy, a gun barrel didn't come up.
Mm-hmm.
Then I realized that he's probably got a beat on me already.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I walked up there, and we fought it out.
Mm-hmm.
I gave him 3 or 4 shots and got the best of them. Then I withdrew, and I looked around, and pretty soon I saw another
Mm-hmm.
gun barrel go up. And I went over there, the same thing with him.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, the other men, well, I had waved them down, you know. As soon as they see anything, they hit the ground. And when I went back, they were all gone.
Oh.
I thought, boy, I better get going too, get back with our outfit.
Mm-hmm.
We were still looking for that road. and it wasn't very far.
Mm-hmm.
We joined each other again, and it was like shooting rabbits. The Japs didn't know that we were there.
Mm-hmm.
And matter of fact, for 2 or 3 days, they didn't know that we were there at this roadblock behind their lines.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Now, when you were in the roadblock, were you still in contact with battalion, and did the rest of the Americans know where you were?
well, yes and no. We put our panels out, and I remember the first time went out and the plane saw us, he
Mm-hmm.
dipped his wings, and then we were so happy.
Okay, you said put your panels up. Can you explain that so people can know what that means?
Well, our communication sergeant
Mm-hmm.
had panels telling what unit we were from,
Mm-hmm.
and he knew, and he read it, so he,
Right. So you've got something you're able to put out there on the
Yeah.
ground that the aircraft can see, and they know who you are and not to bomb you. Well,
Right.
Did that cause a problem if Japanese planes came over? Or
well,
would he take the panels
oh
away?
no, take them down right. As soon as we were recognized, why,
Mm-hmm.
they'd pull the panels off. We also had telephone communication, but they would always cut the wire, so
Mm-hmm.
you never know if you get through or not.
Now, did you have problems with Japanese snipers or infiltrators or people trying to get into your position?
All the time. Matter of fact, our company commander, about the second day he was there, he got hit with a sniper.
Mm-hmm.
And they realized there was nothing they could do. He was dying, and in a day or so, he was gone. We had several commanders
Mm-hmm.
that got hit by snipers.
Do you think they were targeting the officers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, this idea of officers, I know, as time went on, some of us were offered a field position.
Mm-hmm.
I said, no, thank you. And I knew a lot of them that accepted a field commission, but a lot of them never came back
Mm-hmm.
because they would put them in a situation where it was almost suicide.
Okay. Now, about how long were you in that roadblock, do you think?
Oh, I think it was 23 days.
Wow. And you said when you first got there, the Japanese really didn't know you were there. They didn't realize that you were occupying the position.
Well, then after that, they really worked us over.
Mm-hmm.
And the snipers was the worst thing because we did put a wire across the road on each end of our perimeter, put tin cans on it, little stones in there. And if they didn't know that wire was there, they would trip on it, or at least they would cause those cans to rattle. And if anybody's walking on the road and the cans rattled, why, somebody would pick them off right away. They knew that it wasn't a friendly foe.
Mm-hmm. Now, were you able to get supplies and food into your position?
Not consistently. Occasionally you would, but I remember one time the CO asked how many mortar rounds we had left. I says 3.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-oh. He says, you can hang on to that. That's strategic material.
Mm-hmm.
And they would send patrols,
Mm-hmm.
but so often the patrols couldn't make it through. And finally they had an armed patrol. I think they had bayonets and their rifles, and just a very small pack. They had just a limited amount of ammunition and food,
Mm-hmm.
and they managed to break through.
Mm-hmm. Now, while you're in there, did you have any idea what was going on in the rest of the battle, or were you just taking care of yourselves?
No, we couldn't tell.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we heard a lot of shooting,
Mm-hmm.
but
Now, how did that situation end then? You're in this roadblock for 20 days or whatever. Were you simply relieved and someone else replaced you, or did
I'm
someone
not
else
too
change?
clear on that, because just before it ended,
Mm-hmm.
some of us were very sick with malaria.
Mhm.
You had to have 103,
Mm-hmm.
so I had to go to the medics,
Mm-hmm.
and they asked you what was wrong. Well, I had malaria. They take the temperature, and I had 105.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that doctor was very disgusted with me. He slapped me across the face. I was semi-delirious.
Mm-hmm.
He said, answer me, listen. But when he heard that I had 105, then he changed his tune a little. But they put me in a Jeep and, just burning up like that and then go out on an open Jeep. I could freeze to death. But they got me out yet that night. I know, the pilot says, this is the last trip we're making tonight. And he says, I hope we can make it. There was a gap in the reef, or the mountains, and they had to find that to get through there. We found it, fortunately. I flew back to 155th Field Hospital.
Was that at Port Moresby or back in Australia?
No, let's see, I don't even know where it was.
Okay.
But got on there, and then they put us on a Qantas flying boat. I always wanted to land on the water. Well, this was a big tub, 3 decks. I thought it was going to take forever to get out of the water. We just taxied so long. But we finally made it. We landed in northern Australia someplace. And here, I could walk here, but there was a lot of litter cases.
Now, how long were you in the hospital then? Did they take you to hospital?
I was in the hospital for 17 days. And then they shipped us to another hospital in Australia. And then some little major there said to me, what are you here for? I said, I broke my glasses. He said, oh. He said, let me see your records. Well, we didn't have any records with us. He said, did you have malaria? And I said, yeah. Well, he said, we'll start you right away. I said, well, I've already had 17 days of that. But he says, you don't have any records to prove it. You got to start over.
So is this medical treatments, or what did they do for somebody with malaria?
Well, of course, you go to bed right away, and then they just give you, at the time, Ativan was the thing, and they just keep giving that till you come out of your ears. And so eventually it would go away, and I was concerned because I thought I was going to be the last one in my unit. But no, they came. Some never did come back to work.
Some of them were so sick they never went back in. Now, how long was it before you got to go back to your company?
I don't even remember, but it seemed like it could have been 6 weeks or a couple months, a long, long time.
Okay. Now, did you join him in New Guinea or in Australia then?
In Australia, yeah. Seems to me we're in the Brisbane area.
Because they're after the Boona campaign, they're taken out and the unit has to refit at that point.
And then they sent us to a malaria camp. We went to Wollongata, I think it was. And a beautiful place, beautiful beaches there in the Pacific. And there we're just supposed to take it easy, And, I know.
Is that when you made the ring?
What's that?
Is that when you made the ring?
No. I got a ring I made out of a shilling. But there was times later on in New Guinea when we were fight with the Japs, then they would retreat. But they would always retreat to higher ground, so they had it over us. But then we'd just go around and make a landing and wait for them, and we would make coconut log. And they say, well, now keep improving your position. You never know when they're going to hit you. So we had a lot of time on our hand. So we'd make a ring. Mind you taking a shilling and taking your spoon out of your musket and just turning it and keep hitting it until it got flat. And it took forever, but we made some rings.
Okay. So in your story here, you were at the point where you're in the malaria camp, you're supposed to be taking it easy or whatever and hanging around for a while. What did you do with your time while they had you there?
I don't know, just
To sit around?
Just sit around. Of course, you always had to have plenty of security out because you don't want them to catch you by surprise. And the orders was to keep improving your position, keep improving your position. So if they do hit you away, you'd be protected as well as possible.
Who did you meet, Woody, in Coolangatta?
Well, when I went to Coolangatta, I just went there on a pass.
Okay. But she asked who you met there.
Isn't that when you met, who are these people, that you met in Coolangatta?
Oh,
The ones that you invited to our wedding?
yeah.
Twigs?
Oh,
Twigs? Wasn't their name Twigs?
yes, Twigs.
Now, was that in Coolangatta?
Yes.
Okay, so he might like to know that you met some of the people there, that you went to church and so on, when you were in Coolangatta.
That was a little resort town on the Pacific. Beautiful resort, and I remember one time I was swimming and the old lifeguard rang the bell. My buddy and I said, yeah, we better get out. And they yelled at me, get out of there, get out of there. So then we took it serious. And shortly after, I had a great big tiger shark.
Wow.
I bet the thing was 16, 18 feet long. And he came close to shore in about that deep of water.
Wow.
And I said, oh, they mean business here. But all was well. He didn't bother anybody,
But then you got to meet some of the people then in that town?
yes. Oh, at this malaria place where we were supposed to be recuperating, they would let the men go to town, give them a pass, and they needed some to check on them, MPs. So they made some of us temporary MP. It was a Camp Fingal, and we would have FMP. We'd take a tie, a light colored tie and black lettering, and people probably laughed, but any of our men knew that we were one of them. If they got caught doing something wrong, why, they would get thrown in the brig. But that was interesting. I was assigned a truck driver, and I had to go to different towns, and on Saturday night, and we see that the boys behaved, especially if there was a dance or something, you know.
And since you were the one of the guys who didn't drink, it made some sense to have you make the rounds.
Yeah, I didn't drink.
How did you meet the Twigs, honey? You happened to go to church there on Sunday
Yeah,
morning?
she was the organist there,
Okay.
and I think he led the singing.
And you got to be quite friendly with her because they sent us a wedding gift, they sent us a baby gift.
All right. Now, but basically, so you're there. Now, did you go to this place sort of kind of after the hospital? Was it kind of on your way back to join your unit, or?
Oh, while we were at the malaria camp, we had to go for a medical board, and two of the doctors were in favor of us staying a little longer. One wanted us to go back into action right away.
Right.
So we were glad that we were voted to stay. I think we stayed a couple weeks longer.
Okay. And then when you rejoined your unit then, was your unit based in Australia at that point, or were they?
No, actually our unit had left Australia. They put us into another I company of 127. And that was some outfit because they had booed the general at one point. And he really fixed them good. And I know there was a bunch of little GIs there, and none of us wore chevrons. I remember went out in the field one time for a problem or something, and some guy said to me, "Where's your pencil and paper?" I said, "For what?" He said, "Don't you know what's on the schedule today?" I said, "No." Nobody told me. And later on, one of his leaders said, "You just mind your own business." He says, "Some of these men around here got more stripes than you'll ever see. So, so then they didn't bother as much. Although I had one occasion, one of our boys wouldn't come out for formation. I said, he's sick. He said, get him out here. I said, well, he's sick. Get him out here. I said, he's sick and he's not coming out.
Mm-hmm.
If he comes out, it'll be on a stretcher. And we had a little tiff that way. But I knew the CO
Mm-hmm.
quite well, and he just don't pay any attention to them.
All right. Now, at this point, our tape here is about out, so let's stop that one. After recuperating from malaria, you've now been assigned to Company I of the 127th Infantry Regiment in your division instead, and things are kind of shaking out with them. Where did they send you next in terms of the next battle or campaign? Where did you go after that?
Oh, the next we went to some city in northern Australia.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure which one it was, but anyway, when we were on the train, our commanding officer, he says, no, I don't want anybody to get lost on the way.
Mm-hmm.
The train stopped for something, and there was a liquor store nearby, and I mean, they cleaned them out.
Mm-hmm.
They just bought them out. Everyone, he says, now, don't anyone use that for an excuse that you can't make the train,
Mm-hmm.
because we're gonna get you up. He says, we want you all up there on the line, and no excuses. So we had quite a deal with it. It's a drunken mess, but we got them all.
Mm-hmm.
We got them up there, and we ran into some happy base section commandos, we call them. They want us to do this, they want us to do that, and nobody would work for anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
All they'd have to do was take a buck private of ours and put him in charge of the detail. They'd do anything for him.
Mm-hmm.
But they wouldn't do anything, so some major came along and he says, now everybody get on that truck. And nobody would get on. And everybody get on it, so they all got on. He says, now I want 12 men to get off. They all got off. And nobody would. And so he went to our CO and he says, I can't make these men work. He says, I think I'll put them on the rock pile. He said, well, he says, you outrank me, so do what you want to. But he says, don't forget, these boys have been shot at before.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't ask for any more details.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, then they put us on a boat and they took us to Good Enough Island.
Mm-hmm.
And there we saw our outfit. They were getting ready to make a landing. I think it was Sador.
Yeah, I think that was the next one that 32nd did. Yeah.
And I remember the non-coms got together. It was around the holiday. He says, we'll volunteer one day to do KP work. And that was a real surprise because non-coms figured that
Mm-hmm.
they had enough of their own business to take care of, let alone doing the dishes. But anyway, so we went to Good Enough Island, and then from there, I believe it was Morotai.
Mm-hmm. We did Sidor and then Morotai after that.
It was Sador first, yeah.
Yeah.
We made the landing first.
Now, what was that landing like?
Oh, it was the most beautiful thing to see all the rockets and everything go off, you know, and we thought, my, this is something. We expect the opposition to hit us.
Mm-hmm.
We made the landing and no resistance at all,
Right.
none. And we hustled up on shore. There was a little edge of trees,
Mm-hmm.
and we stopped there because we knew that our aircraft were coming from the opposite direction.
Mm-hmm.
There was a big open space, and they were going to bomb.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, we saw the planes come, and they were very accurate because
Mhm.
if they held on a little longer, they would have gotten us because
Yeah.
we were right in line. And there wasn't any opposition there, at least not much.
Mm-hmm.
The few Japs that were, they hustled on up the coast, and we had to chase them, and there was not much to it. At least they got out of our range or sight, so we didn't have any fighting at that time.
Right. Now, did you go inland and try to find them, or was there some place you were supposed to actually capture or occupy, or you just march around for a while and leave?
I'm a little rusty on
Okay.
that.
All right. But it was not a place where you had a lot of large-scale fighting like at Buna or something?
No, but I remember we saw a lot of our bombs that had been dropped and didn't go off, and we were a little bit leery, you know, sitting around a 500-pound bomb there. But
Okay. Now, at this point, were a lot of the men in your company replacements? I mean, did you have, how much of the original guard?
oh yes,
was
we
that?
had a lot of replacements. We didn't realize what a little West Point we had when we first went in.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, everybody knew each other. They knew who they could depend on, and that was it. But when you get all these replacements, then it was a different story.
Did you get to know any of these? Of course, I guess you were going into a new company too, so that was, you didn't necessarily know the guys you were joining, because a lot of the 127 was Wisconsin men of the original guards. So did you kind of have a group of people that you knew or could connect with or knew from Louisiana that were there with you?
Yeah, we knew them, but some of the new ones, you get to know them, but at first, no, you don't know them, and they don't know you. I remember on one occasion we were advancing up a hill, and the Nips were shooting machine guns, and they're just throwing the mud in your face. If they just elevate those, they'd go. It got so bad that we got together with M Company, who was behind us. They had heavy machine guns too, and we said, well, let's wait till after dark. So we withdrew. Then after dark, we went up that hill. And there we had point of being challenged by our own men. Said, who's there? I said, well, Sergeant Trump. Who? I said, Sergeant Trump. He said, do I know you? I said, well, if you don't, you better. And I said, just put your safety on. And I said, we're coming in to reinforce you. But there was a case where neither one of us knew the new guy.
Okay. Now, you stayed then with your unit. They go to Morotai. Is that sort of an island off of New Guinea? Was that, or is that another place on New Guinea?
No, Morotai was part of the Dutch East Indies. That was our main base. And of all things, we were asked to guard a radar. So the first island they picked was I got a senior moment, but anyway,
You're going to guard a radar station.
When we want to make a landing on the island, we don't know if there are any Japs on it or not. I went up there and I know I got up there and I didn't see anybody, and I looked back and the guys that were still in this were pointing, and down the beach here comes a bunch of natives with long bamboo poles and white flags. Well, I was still from Missouri, you know, I heard a lot of stories that they will bluff and then all of a sudden they'll open up with machine guns or something. But anyway, went there and I tried to talk with them a little bit. They, some of them had, what language did they talk?
Well, in the Australian part of New Guinea, some of them might have talked Pidgin English, but but if you're in the Dutch area, I don't know.
I knew just a few Dutch words, but anyway, we conversed and we all landed there. We stayed there overnight and found out there wasn't any fresh water. So we caught rain in our ponchos, and we found out if you drink coconut juice when it's real green, it's real tangy, and that will quench your thirst more so than that milk would.
Yeah.
But they only kept us there 24 hours because there was no fresh water. Then they put us back on the boat. We went to another island called Rao, which is about 10 miles across the bay from Halmahera. And there said there's 40,000 Japs there, 10 miles across, and here we're on a little island. We made a landing there, no opposition. The natives took off to the hills when we came in. Some of them had never seen a vehicle. As a matter of fact, we even had a bulldozer so they could make a road for this radar.
Right.
But that was a fun time. We were there about 3 weeks, and I remember I wrote home, and no Japs, no brass. I think we had one commissioned officer, and they set up the radar, and no really effect from the Japs as far as ships or planes. So after 3 weeks, they took us back. But I wrote home, no Japs, no brass, and that was a real fun time.
All right. Well, where did they send you after that? Were you going back to Australia periodically and then shifting out somewhere else, or kind of now staying farther forward?
I'm a little rusty on that. Now, let me see, after that, the next stop was the Philippines. I'm just trying to think the name of the island.
I think they sent the 32nd to Leyte first.
Leyte.
Reinforcements
That was-
there.
Yeah. Some outfit really got kicked around, and they put us up there to reinforce them, and then we took, we really took it up the Ormac Valley in Leyte. And that was one of the last real battles we had.
Now, how was the fighting experience there different from what you had at Buna?
Well, this was mass. The other times more snipers or you go around and
Right. So there were more. Were you better supplied and equipped this time than you were back at Buna?
Oh yes, yes. Yeah, we knew that we were going to go in there, and
But did you have good artillery support and air support and things like that?
oh yes, yes.
And how were the Japanese? What style of fighting were they using at that point?
Well, they're a clever fighter. They don't come out and try and meet you one-on-one. They're always hiding someplace, and they're excellent at camouflage. And sometimes they're clever enough to let men go by them, then later on shoot you in the back. So,
Now, were you still serving with a mortar unit at that point, or were you with just a regular line company, or?
no, I was just with a line company, and I have to keep in contact with the mortars, especially, but like the machine guns, they usually put on the flank. And,
Now, in this period there, when you're on Leyte and so forth, were you engaged in combat a lot and taking casualties, or was it just now and then that something happened?
when in
Leyte,
Leyte,
yeah.
oh, we were almost continuously in fighting.
And did that continue until the Japanese on the island were defeated, or did your unit get pulled out before that happened?
No, until they were defeated. They gave up.
About when was it, or how long was it, do you think, before that happened, or around what month maybe? So we're getting into 45 now at this point.
I'm afraid I can't give you
Okay,
that.
all right.
Bernie, do you know where that letter is?
The one
There's
commending
two
your
or
unit,
three letters.
the one that was commending.
There's two or
your
three
unit.
letters that are together.
I don't think they're here. Could it be by you, honey? Underneath that,
Let's see what we
that
have here.
Oh, yeah,
paper.
here. Here they are. I would like to show you some. It's falling apart.
Oh my. Well, this stuff has to be curated or protected. All right. So this letter is a commendation for the unit for getting through the Oronoco Valley, and that's dated at the end of December of 1944. So that was your one mission there.
Yeah, well, that was the Oronoco Valley, and that was one of the last big battles that that we were involved in.
And then after that, you went to some other islands in the Philippines, and was
After that, we went to Mindanao.
Mm-hmm.
There's a great big ration dump,
Mm-hmm.
and we landed right there, and we would go on detail for a couple weeks, the dump, and then they'd put us up in the mountains for a couple weeks to fight.
Mm-hmm.
And it was quite a difference. It was real hot there, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, by the shore.
Mm-hmm.
And you go up in the mountains, it was cool.
Yeah. Now, was there much Japanese opposition at this point? Were they just kind of hiding up in the mountains and you had to go find them? Or?
Well, we were dug in, and we had to set up our guard posts that night. I know we were so short of men all the time. I remember one night I was out there. I was alone for 3.5 hours,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a long time. You hear noises, you hear shooting, and I know we had a Bonzi attack that night, but not near where I was, but I know near one of my machine guns. And the next morning, boy, they were glad to see daylight,
Mm-hmm.
but a Japanese officer tried to sneak up on him, and a ration can that big, he managed to put a hole through it with his pistol.
Mm-hmm.
So he was a good shot. But they got him, and then they all divvied up. Somebody got his saber, and some got his billfold and his watch and all that stuff. But
Okay. Now, I think you were discharged a little bit before the end of the war. Did you get to a point where you'd accumulated enough points that you were able to muster out, or how did the war end for you?
well, you would have to have so many points to get out.
Mm-hmm.
And the first fella got out. He got out 14 months ahead of me,
Mm-hmm.
and I had more points than he did.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's the way the Army works sometimes.
Right.
But he was clever. He was. He worked in regimental, and he did a little finagling with his
Mm-hmm.
numbers, his papers, and all that. So he got to go 14 months ahead of myself.
But otherwise, were you one of the first people to go out of your unit, or?
Oh, not necessarily. There was a lot of them got ahead of me. But I can remember when we were up in the mountains fighting there. When we weren't at the ration dump, we were up in the mountains fighting. And the first sergeant said to me, he says, "Tromp," he says, "stand up, but keep your head down. Our foxholes were deep enough we'd have steps on them." He said, "I got good news." He says, "You're on the May quota, you're going home tomorrow."
Mm-hmm.
And boy, he says, "You be careful tonight."
Mm-hmm.
But that was good news.
All right. Now, how did they get you back home?
Well, they asked us, now you have a choice. You could sign up for flying home.
Mm-hmm.
He says, you have a AAA priority, but what that means, we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
He says, you might wait a week, you might wait 6 months. Or, he says, you can take a boat, which takes, I don't know, what did we say, 6 weeks or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I had so much jungle rot,
Mm-hmm.
and I could not get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I'll go by boat, and I'll lay out on the deck every day in the sun and see if that won't help. And it did help, but I still didn't get rid of it before I got home.
All right. And then where'd you land in the States?
San Francisco.
Okay. And did you have to stay there any amount of time, or did they just put you on a train and send you back?
No, they check you over for this. We're right by some little island, Angel Island, I guess.
Mhm.
And they seem to have a lot of Japanese prisoners around there someplace. In a wire city, we call it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, but then after a short time, they sent us to Fort Sheridan, Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
We went through that and took a train to good old Grand Rapids.
Okay, so what'd you do when you got home?
Well, we got married, 11 days after I got home, we got married.
Okay. Had you been engaged before you left, or did you decide to get married in the middle somewhere? Or?
No, well, we had hoped to get married, but I couldn't get a furlough, or
Mm-hmm.
we were just separated for 3-4 years.
Wow, it's a long time.
Yes, it is. And she kept writing, "Do you like it there?" or something.
Mm-hmm.
But
He always has such a good attitude. He says, some fine day I'll be coming back, but my, he doesn't sound like it's all that bad.
well, I had it one time in the States after the war.
Mm-hmm.
We were guarding someplace, and I missed I don't know, it was a Thanksgiving dinner or something, and I missed it. Oh, did I get the crybaby?
Sympathy.
So I said, I'll never complain again, and that's why.
All right. And then you got out. You got out of the army, and then did you join the postal service right away, or did you do other things?
No, I wanted to learn the carpenter trade. I had a friend who built houses. Yeah, he says, I'll see that you get carpenter trade. And we finally found a house to rent. They were so scarce.
Mm-hmm.
And we were painting, and this builder would come over every morning. Come on, Woody, wants to come to work. Oh, he says, we're busy painting now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he said, but I got to have a house. And so finally I went to work with him, and he sent me to some old Dutchman, and
Mm-hmm.
we had to put in basements. And I didn't like it, but it was a job.
Mm-hmm.
And I got started on, boy, later on, another fellow and I bought some forms, and we went in for ourselves for a while. And,
Mm-hmm.
but, very seasonal.
And so then, how long did you stay in that business?
I don't know. What did I do after?
Well, hon, there were 2 or 3 things you tried. You were custodian at Calvary Church for a couple of years.
Yeah,
You worked for a summer at Heckman Bakery.
yeah.
And then your dad said you're giving exams for civil service. How about trying out?
Yeah, I did that. Then I took an exam, and I asked him, I says, do I have to go to work right away? No, and he says, so I waited, and next thing I knew, they put my name at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
So they called me again, I don't know, a year or so. I said, well, not yet.
Mm-hmm.
And the third time, I said, well, I said, how serious are they? Well, I said, you better take it. So I did, I took it, and it was a good thing. I took the job around September, and a lot of the building fell
Market
through.
brought up.
The guys I worked for were out of work for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
So I started as a sub, and sub you can work all the hours you want.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I got to be a regular, then I had a 40-hour job. It was very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Although I like best being on the route than to be in the office, because then you're on your own, and you meet a lot of different people, and you see their kids. They grow up and get married.
All right. I want to a couple of things kind of to go back to here. You'd mentioned that when you were in the Guard, one of the things that you did was police riots in Flint. Was that what was going on there, or what was
Well, I
that
was in
about?
high school at the time, and yeah, we heard a lot of reports. The police there couldn't handle it.
Mm-hmm.
State police, and we saw more cruisers burned, and tipped them over and burned them, and
Mm-hmm.
more running around with bandages on their head, and they couldn't handle it.
Mm-hmm.
So we were called out. We went to Whittier High School, and we took over their gym, put our cots in there.
Mm-hmm.
and we didn't have much to do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we had guard duty. In the middle of the street, we had a great big 50-gallon drum with a fire in there. It was cold. It was in winter. And we'd stop all the cars coming. If they didn't have a pass, they would turn around and go the other way. And I remember they said to us, now, if anyone doesn't stop, just throw your rifle through the windshield. That'll stop. But I had one occasion when some lady came yelling. She had a liquor store. National Guardsmen, National Guardsmen, come here, come here. So I went down there. What's the problem? He says, there's a man here, he won't get out. He says he wants to buy liquor, and there was a bin, no liquor. And the guy was about 3 times my size. But here I had a bayonet on the end of my rifle. I looked at him, I says, you know what the order is? He says, now get out. He very meekly walked out.
There you go. Well, early sergeant training, maybe.
But I'm glad he did, because I don't know what I would have. I hate to stick him, but you gotta.
All right. Now, to look back on the whole thing now, how do you think that your time in the service affected you? Is it as a person, or how you view the world, or anything else like that?
Well, it's a very different concept, war. I never dreamed what it would be like, and what the conditions are. You know, the weather is such an important thing. Rain, malaria, mosquitoes, flies, leeches, just all kinds of things. And that can really wear you down too, because if you're not up to par, why, your thinking isn't always quite as sharp. And you just wonder, am I going to be alert enough to watch out for myself? So I would say it's $1 million experience, but I wouldn't want to go through it again.
Yeah, certainly sounds like that. Okay, well, thank you very much for talking to me today.
Well, thank you for your patience.
All right. Okay. That was really good.